another quick update. I think it's probably fair to say I might have put a little bit too much time into grid snapping and stuff. So my wall thickness here is 40 centimeters. And you'll see that I've added a grid which I'll use for the building stuff. And the idea is to copy a feature from like The Sims and Inzoi and stuff, in that like it'll have a footprint for each item that we're building. Let me show you sort of. So right now, why is that? Okay, that's not right. No, there is that. Each one of these items has got its own pivot point. I wrote a little utility that allows you to set pivot points and stuff. By default, by default, all the asset packs have them in the center of the bounding box, which is bleeding news to me. So I wrote a utility to set the pivot point on different actors. And the idea is that each actor will have a footprint, and I'm going to use this 40 centimeter grid for the sort of footprint tiles, if you know what I mean. So in this particular case, let's just place this table here. And you'll see that it kind of fits within 8 40 centimeter tiles. And the idea is that you want to be able to sort of snap items together on a grid for the most part. Most people I've seen in The Sims, when they get better at building, actually spend most of their time switching the grid off. So I might make that the default, is that like essentially you have to choose to snap to a grid or not. I don't know. But anyway, the sort of bigger point here, I spent some time putting a material together so you could see which way the things were facing as well. What you're trying to do is make things fit within this grid system. It makes sense to do that because you do want to often kind of align things relatively well. You know, I need to fix the wall visibility checking as well. So there's a whole bunch of things to do, but you kind of get the point, right? I'm trying to build a system where we can like snap to a reasonably small size grid. And because the walls themselves, when we're building a wall, if I go to, I've got a new wall mode. It's not right now. So the snap on the wall, you can see it's definitely 80 centimeters, but it's not aligned to the actual build grid. But you can kind of get the point here, right? So if I just toggle back here, like the actual width of it is 20 centimeters. So what'll eventually happen is, maybe I'll go down to 20 centimeters, but the point is that the walls will be a single cell as well. I'll have to have a look at that. But when you're building a wall, the whole point is that you kind of want to have grid snaps on. Ooh. Well, there's an interesting thing. The grid snap for that. Oh no, of course it's always centered. But then not for that one. I guess my grids is a little bit off somehow. It's all exciting stuff anyway. So you see that like I've made these so that the walls themselves are static meshes rather than instances, so I can cut holes in them. So next part is to add the door and the material settings for the walls. But I'm going to have a look at the grid again, because obviously some things out of alignment. But there you go, you know, it's all sort of progress. This grid itself is in world space, so it'll follow the player around essentially. But I want to be able to place things on tabletops and stuff, so there'll be a separate build grid for that as well. It's all using the same material functions, so it should be a relatively quick thing to do. But I might just have to look at whether it is, because that thickness of wall seems to be 20 rather than 40. And you'll see that there's things like flickering on the corners. I've still got to fix a lot of those things up because you're overlapping essentially static meshes. So things like scaling static meshes so that they don't intersect first and that kind of thing. Or doing a Boolean, I suppose, but I don't think that's a good idea. So there you go. A bit of progress.